Big poppin', money in the bank coming, dropping a deposit. Having it my way, so I got these bitches watching. Steady getting to it, couldn't fit it in my pocket. Flexing everything, baby, tell me big poppin'. Money in the bank coming, dropping a deposit. Having it my way, so I got these bitches watching. Steady getting to it, couldn't fit it in my pocket. Flexing everything, baby, tell me what to tap it.
Yeah, some things just don't change, do they? What's poppin', everybody? Welcome back to the bar. I know that this is a bit of a new look than what people are accustomed to seeing, but that's because we are venturing out into different topics. And today we are going to be getting into a little bit of a review of the hearing yesterday with Pam Bondi and the response from the survivors of Epstein. Now, Bondi went in there, and the survivors and all of America were looking to get answers from her when it comes down to Epstein. And we got nothing. But before we get into that, if you are new here, welcome, welcome. Please be sure to like, comment, and of course, subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell, select all, so that you get notified whenever I do a video. And if you are a returning Mob Down Henny Gang member, yeah. Now let's get into this topic. Now, before we get into all of it, let me just say this. I do not proclaim myself to be a political analyst, but what I do proclaim myself to be is somebody who is very interested in these topics, especially when it comes down to the topic of Epstein. Now, if you have not had the dissatisfaction of trying to figure out all that is going on within that file, let me tell you some of the things that I have encountered while trying to get answers. I have come across documents that have nothing to do with Epstein or the survivors or the sex trafficking ring that Epstein and a lot of people in power, including a lot of politicians, people that are a part of the Trump cabinet, and even the Cheeto felon himself are involved in. Let's start there. But yesterday was an embarrassment as the world was watching Attorney General Pam Bondi sit in a Capitol Hill hearing and testify. And the things that she was sidestepping was completely egregious. Now, if you were here yesterday, then you watched the whole thing. Shout out to everybody. Hey now. Make sure y'all share this up. If y'all missed the live, let me go ahead and let me just pull up a couple of clips, because there seemed to be a lot of tension between Pam Bondi and the Democrats, which you would naturally expect. But what people have begun to notice is that Pam Bondi has what they call a burn book, where she has a binder full of discrepancies, for lack of better word at the moment, for each individual representative and their state. So if you say something negative or something that she doesn't like, or you criticize her, or you criticize Trump, she pulls out the burn book and she gets to trying to burn people. But I think what she forgot yesterday is that they were not the ones that were on trial or in the hearing or even summoned there to answer questions. That was her. But instead, she sidestepped, asked questions for questions, and then began to slander. Plays right up out of the Cheeto felon's book. We've all seen him do that. But enough of my word about it. In case you haven't seen some of them, let me give you some of my favorite highlights from the day. And they also speak volumes to the way that a lot of these questions were going. Do I want to start there? I think I'm going to start here with Thomas Macy. Let's start there. And if I said his name wrong, charge it to the game and not to me, because these names are definitely hard. All right. And let me fix myself on this screen while I play this content for you. So here is Representative Thomas Macy.
Behind me, I have 3 documents from the DOJ production that are emblematic of the massive failure of the DOJ to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. To my right is an email that was sent by the victim's lawyers to the DOJ. It was a list of names not to redact.
So this is one of the repeated things that kept being brought up throughout the hearing, was the fact that when these 3 million documents were dropped, that instead of redacting the victims' names and protecting them, the victims' names were exposed. Not only their names, partial addresses and phone numbers were given up to them, given up as well in these documents. But you know who did receive some type of redaction? Co-conspirators. That's who. But I'm gonna let the video play and let y'all hear for yourselves.
Or sorry, a list of names not to release. What did the DOJ do with this email? They released this email in the document production. Literally the worst thing you could do to the survivors, you did. And they're getting phone calls. A lot of these people didn't want to be known.
And the thing is, there was wording in the DOJ's requirements for releasing these documents that restricted them from being able to release the information of the victims. Some people were supposed to be Jane Does, and those Jane Does were then exposed. Now, I'm going to say this. If I decide to go step forward on powerful accusers, I would like to be able to trust that I'm not dealing with local law enforcement where you expect some type of blunders to happen. I'm dealing with the highest form of justice, the Department of Justice. I would expect them to protect me. But this doesn't feel like protection, at least not for the victims.
And we know you touched the document because you redacted one name and you redacted the lawyer's name, but you left the survivor's name there. The next document I want to show you, that was in the title, the victims' survivors' names, all right? The title of this one is Child Sex Trafficking, Co-Conspirators, fully redacted. And by the way, I'm going to unredact them here. Les Wexner is in this. Now, your your deputy attorney general said, oh, well, he appears hundreds of times in the files, but he doesn't appear in this file until I forced you to release it, where he's listed as a co-conspirator, not to tax evasion, but to child sex trafficking, not to prostitution, not to money laundering, child sex trafficking. And then finally, what we have here is the third exhibit that I have is emblematic of the FD 302 release. These are the documents that we need that you're holding on to and over redacting because they have the names of the men who are implicated. How do we know? Because the survivors gave testimony to the FBI.
Now, the thing about some of these hugely redacted, before I get into who Wes Lexner is, for those who don't know, I came across information that was shared with me that if you go through some of these documents and you look at the redactions, some of them begin to reduce in redaction. Some of them are hugely redacted. And then in the next version, which would be the same document, they're lightly redacted. And then in another version, they're even more lightly redacted. And what's behind those redactions sometimes is the president's name. Now, I'm not going to say allegedly, because that is a fact that if somebody decides to go dig through those files and find those documents, they'll be able to see it for themselves. Now, Les Wexner, okay, he's one of the billionaires here in the Americas, and he's best known for building large retail empires. His empire includes Bath and Body Works, Victoria's Secret, and are you ready for this one? Abercrombie and Finch. And we all know they were just on trial and what they were on trial for as well. Okay, that's who he is. And his name has come up in connection with Jeffrey Epstein's financial management and his assets, okay? But he's also connected to Donald J. Trump. So when they say that they are protecting, who are they protecting becomes the biggest question in the grand scheme of things. Okay? Now, Representative Massey is not the only one that was calling out Pam Bondi, because also Representative Ross was speaking to Bondi because, well, do we want to go to Ross? Yeah, let's go ahead and let's go to Ross, shall we? Because what Representative Ross was speaking to was the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell was removed from one federal facility to another federal facility. And why was she moved? Even Pam Bondi herself said that she doesn't know. But let's take a listen to what
Chairman,
she had
Attorney
to say.
General Bondi, I think you and pretty much everybody else here and throughout the country believes that convicted sex offenders don't deserve special treatment or privileges in prison.
Chat. Henny glasses in the chat. If you also are in agreement with sex offenders should not be allotted privileges in prison at all. If you are in agreement, drop your Henny glasses, drop your Henny head so it shows up in the chat on screen.
And yet Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator, received perk after perk in prison. In July, she had a 2-day interview with your deputy and President Trump's former defense attorney, Todd Blanche. Just days after that, Maxwell was transferred from a federal correctional institution in Florida to a minimum security camp in Texas, which she, as a sex offender, would normally be ineligible for.
And that's the problem. Why was she eligible for this? What information did she give off the record, I wonder, that made her eligible to receive perks of being moved to Club Fed?
At this new facility, as the ranking member talked about, and by the way, it's nicknamed Club Fed. We've heard reports that she's been afforded special privileges, puppy time, private workouts, personal mail, secretarial services. Attorney General Bondi, does a convicted sex offender like Ghislaine Maxwell deserve special treatment and privileges in prison? Yes or no?
Let me be crystal clear on this. No. And
Thank you.
let me keep going. No, let me keep going.
Perfect. Well, I
did not know she was being transferred.
I asked you yes or no.
She was not transferred to a lower
Mr. Chairman,
level.
please stop the clock and remind the witness of the rules.
Now, if you have not watched the hearing in its entirety, it is here on the page for you guys to be able to watch and run up. It is about 4 hours long in length. It does have its peaks and valleys, but this is the type of behavior that was displayed by Attorney General Pam Bondi throughout this whole proceeding when it came down to answering tough questions like these, which it shouldn't have been tough. It was like pulling teeth to get yes or no answers out of her.
And I'm glad that we're agreeing. So when we're agreeing, we can move on to some other things. But I want you to know that every time she does get these perks, and it's been publicly reported, that the folks she's abused, the survivors who are sitting here, they see themselves as being denied justice. They feel re-traumatized. And I'm glad that we agree on that. But she should not be in that prison. And she needs to be moved back to a maximum security prison as soon as possible. But
Henny glasses in the chat if you agree with that. Do you agree, chat, that Ghislaine Maxwell should be moved from her comfy, cushy Club Fed cell where she gets puppy time and massages and cell phones and whatever the hell else she gets, probably a cappuccino maker up in her damn cell and a panini press, who knows? But do you agree that she should be moved from Club Fed and back into a maximum security facility? I see the Henny glasses going up. I know that there is still hope in America.
what she has told another committee here is that she won't cooperate with them unless she gets clemency.
Imagine the audacity of it all. And mind you, victims that have suffered at the hands of Ghislaine Maxwell and at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein and all of the people that Pam Bondi, this attorney general, and this whole Cheeto felon cabinet is protecting, they've suffered at the hands of them, and they're sitting in the back of this courtroom, in the back of this hearing, and they're listening to everything that is being said. So imagine the slap in their face to hear that Ghislaine Maxwell is trying to barter information for clemency. And mind you, Donald Trump has never said, I will not grant her clemency. He's never spoken to that. He's never denounced it. And so therefore, it seems like it is still on the table for her, at least to those of us who are looking, because I'm wondering if you so much are against everything that was being done and you are so much for victims, because, oh man, wait till I get into that portion of programming, because that's what the tone was, this whole make America safe again spiel that she kept spitting out. Yeah, if it was really about that, then why not start with victims of the greatest sex ring of our time? Just a question. I'll let Representative Ross continue.
From Donald Trump. It's just crazy to consider that she can be wielding this kind of influence within the administration.
Correct.
But that begs the question.
Hey, Rob.
Who ordered her to be transferred to the minimum security prison that she was ineligible for? Who signed off on the special privileges? Was it Mr. Blanche? Was it one of your other subordinates? So please, can you tell us who sent her there, since you don't agree she should be there?
I said I do not agree she should receive special treatment. She was transferred, I learned after the fact, to the same level facility, and that is a question for the Bureau of Prisons. I was not involved in that at all. The same level facility, I don't know why, but you know, instead of talking about Ghislaine Maxwell, who hopefully will die in prison, you should be talking about Irina Zarutska.
Now, do you see that old bait and switch? She looked down in her burn book and decided to bring up something that is going on in this representative's district instead of answering the question. Now, the problem with what she just said for me, and I don't know if you agree, you'll let me know that you agree, but I feel that if you are the attorney general, which makes you over, I don't know, the Department of Prisons, maybe, because this is dealing with the Department of Justice, I would think that the attorney general can place a phone call to the Bureau of Prisons to find out why the hell was she moved? What kind of facility is she in? What gives her the right to be in that facility? And also demand that she be moved back from whence she came. Instead, she is passing the buck and sidestepping. And this is what her dog and pony show was about the whole time that she was here in the Capitol, testifying in front of the world and in front of the Epstein victims that she's supposed to be protecting.
I have a couple
Who
of
died
other
on a
questions.
subway.
Right, and I absolutely—
You don't talk about that.
I have been talking about it and actually helping with these issues. But we're going to move back to you.
I bet we are.
Yes, of course, because you're here to testify. That's what the whole point of this endeavor is. So of course we're moving back to you. It is all about you.
That tickled me so much because it really is. It's all about you. And today yesterday she put herself on full display for everybody to see exactly who and what she is.
So as we've heard, she took the fifth in response to every single question in that committee hearing. And her lawyer dangled the offer of clemency. Should Donald Trump pardon or commute her sentence? Should she be released from prison? Yes or no? You said you hope she dies there, so I'm hoping the answer is no.
I already answered that question.
Good. I'm very glad. I really like this bipartisan agreement about
when
what
it
should
agrees
happen.
with you, but you don't want to talk about Irina Zarutska. You don't want to talk about
I talk about
murdered
her all
by
the
a
time,
violent crime
but
offender
I am not
in
here
your
to
jurisdiction.
testify before Congress. You are. That is your job today.
You are
That's what you're getting paid
obsessed.
for.
And that is a fact. It was about her answering questions, not them.
with attack.
So I want you to know that your own DOJ employee, he's recently been demoted and had some other problems, advises on pardons. Do you think he will be advising Mr. Trump on any kind of clemency or pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell?
I'm not going to speculate, and you couldn't even identify properly. That's why you don't want to talk about Irina Zarutska.
She can't even answer simple yes or no questions, which is why she keeps deflecting. Okay? But I'm going to let Representative Ross continue on because I have, two others? I believe I have two others. Yes, that I would like to bring to the forefront from y'all. And to me, these were the highlight for me. Now, there were a lot of other representatives that had a lot of things, a lot of great things that they brought up. But these are the ones that I really felt like was giving it to her as it needed to be given. Okay. Now, what I was going to ask of you guys before, and I was going to tell y'all, of course, drop your Henny glasses or your Henny heads in the chat if you agree that Pam Bondi saying that was a Department of Prisons, a Bureau of Prisons decision, and her sitting there saying that it happened and she found out about it after the fact, just like we did. Do you find that to be despicable and deplorable for an attorney general to sit back and pass the buck like that? If you think that it was disgusting and deplorable for her to pass the buck like that, drop your Henny glasses in the chat.
I identify her relative.
I absolutely
It's embarrassing.
have been,
Hey, Monica.
and her family, by the way, appreciates all of the condolences, all of the help, everything that our law enforcement in North Carolina has been doing to help her family. Her family feels well treated. Thank you, and I yield back.
Now look at that. She tried to throw that in her face, and the family feels protected. Now, of course, no highlight reel would be complete if we did not get to everybody's homegirl up there on Capitol Hill, Jasmine Crockett. Can you guys hear that noise in the background? Hey to everybody that's coming in. I know this is something different, and I'm just grateful to have all of you here right now. You guys can hear it. Okay, so I will make sure that I mute my mic because they are working on the roof next door. So it's a bit distracting. I know. I apologize.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. And to be clear, I'm not going to ask any questions of this witness because this witness has revealed that she has no intentions of answering questions. But instead, I'm going to ask some very basic questions really quickly of my colleague, Becca Ballant, if she will answer right or wrong, raping children.
Wrong.
Right or wrong, killing random citizens.
Definitely wrong.
Right or wrong, enriching yourself as the sitting president of the United States.
Definitely wrong.
Okay, thank you, because I probably never would have got that with our witness. Our witness who somehow is a lawyer but does not understand how it works with witnesses. I'm not really sure what law school she went to and what all kind of cases she tried, but typically when you come into a space and somebody's a witness, then they sit there and they answer questions instead of asking questions. And then we also have this objection that we use as lawyers called non-responsive when a witness fails to actually answer the question. But nevertheless, let me address the survivors because that's exactly who they are. They are not victims, they are survivors. Let me say thank you for having more courage and moral clarity in your pinky fingers than the entire Department of Justice. We are currently the laughing stock of the world, partially because of the failed leadership within the DOJ, as we see kings and queens falling everywhere around the world. But we don't know the basics of right and wrong in this country.
And there is no fluff and no hype to what Jasmine is saying right now, because I know a lot of you do not like Piers Morgan, but Piers Morgan is British TV, right? He's a British podcaster. He tends to have a lot of people from Britain there in England and there on his podcast. And guess what? They are questioning. And it's not just him, it's other people around the globe. They're questioning What is the United States doing? Why haven't there been investigations? Why haven't there been any arrests? Why is everyone else taking this so seriously? Why is it that they were able to strip Prince Andrew of his princeship and yet we still have yet to find an arrest, anyone be arrested, any unsealed indictments come down from anybody? We don't even have a clear co-conspirator list. It doesn't even have to be. At first, everybody wanted this client list. We don't even have clear co-conspirators as of yet.
Because it's not about partisanship. And that's why I applaud Thomas Massie, because he's the only person on the Republican side that has a backbone and knows how to stand up to corruption. But nevertheless, let me keep going. My Democratic colleagues have been attacked this entire committee hearing. They have been lied on. And frankly, the American people weren't looking for that. They were looking for answers about the corruption that they see coming from this administration. In the written testimony of this witness, of this particular witness, she stated that when she took office, she had two main goals. The first was to end the weaponization of justice, and second, to return the department to its core mission. Not only have you lied about both, you've intentionally done the exact opposite.
I'm still waiting for the lie, because Pam Bondi talked big when she got into office. Remember the client list? It's sitting on my desk right now, waiting to be reviewed, only for it to come back later. And oh no, the files are what was sitting on my desk. It wasn't the actual client list, along with MLK and JFK. Girl, but I'll let Jasmine continue.
You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting journalists than you are prosecuting pedophiles and creeps. In fact, your boss, the President of the United States, stated that this administration, quote, took the freedom of speech away. And at your direction, DOJ has arrested Don Lemon and Georgia Fort. And I might add that y'all actually had a judge that rejected y'all for trying to arrest Don Lemon before, just like the grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Kelly, just like a grand jury rejected y'all as it relates to Senator Slotkin, just like the case against Tish James was dismissed and the case against Mr. Comey was dismissed.
Now, let me tell y'all about James Comey. The case was dismissed, and Tish James' case was dismissed, but they are still trying to investigate it. Did y'all know that? Henny Glasses in the chat if y'all know that. They're still trying to spin the block on James Comey, and I still, that's a whole nother video for a whole nother day. Let's continue to let Jasmine cook, because she was chef cooking with the pot, wasn't she?
I completely don't get how it is that you're sitting at the top of DOJ, because you don't seem to be good at your job. You're spending more taxpayer resources arresting these journalists. In fact, we know after Georgia Fort and Don Lemon were arrested, we know that there were homes of journalists that were raided. We know that threatened prosecution against students protesting your actions and forced tech companies to remove apps used to track ISIS activities. But let's circle back to you protecting pedophiles and creeps, because I want to talk about the president and his possible involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I don't know what the president might have done with Jeffrey Epstein, but unlike this administration, I believe that facts matter. So let's talk about the facts. Fact number one, Donald Trump is one of the most named people in the Epstein files. At least 5,000 files contains more than 38,000 references to Trump, his wife, or Mar-a-Lago.
5,000 files, 35,000. Wait a minute. Let's go back to what she just said. Just a little bit, shall we?
Or Mar-a-Lago. Fact number two, references to Trump people in the Epstein files. At least 5,000 files contains more than 38,000 references to Trump, his wife, or Mar-a-Lago.
$5,000 files, 38,000 times. The sitting Cheeto felon, which, by the way, I think we all know by now that he met his wife through Ghislaine and through Epstein, which makes me feel like there was some type of Melania connection a bit deeper than what people are realizing? Yeah, let's continue.
Fact number 2, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell made young girls available to Trump on multiple occasions. For example, according to this file, Ghislaine Maxwell presented a young girl to President Trump who spent more than 20 minutes apparently flirting with her. Here's another example. This shows notes from FBI investigators that describe Jeffrey Epstein transporting a victim to Mar-a-Lago to meet with President Trump, where he bragged to Trump that, quote, "This is a good one." Now, I'm not saying that the president is a pedophile, but there is a lot of evidence in these files that suggests that he's very close friends with a lot of men who are pedophiles.
And let me just say this. If I were to go through every single Democrat, they have talked about how there was a report made of someone who was a driver who overheard a conversation being said that was inappropriate about a victim, and that the victim was later found with her head blown off, and they never bothered to investigate that information. And guess who was involved in that conversation? Epstein and Trump. There was another representative who asked directly to Attorney General Pam Bondi, were there young girls at any of these functions where Trump was with Epstein? And she sidestepped the question. She never bothered to answer it. But yet now we hear Jasmine Crockett is saying that there were documentation that was in there that was saying that Trump was in the vicinity of an Epstein party with young girls. I'm going to see if I can find the representative that asked her that question.
What's crazy about all of this is just that this is a big cover-up. And this administration is engaged in it. In fact, this administration is complicit. But there are numerous others, like how the DOJ is attempting to obstruct justice in the investigation of the rogue agents who have murdered American citizens, or how the DOJ seized voter data from Fulton County in an attempt to steal the 2026 midterm elections, or how federal agents have Tom Homan on tape accepting a bribe and your agency killed the investigation, or how your agency is ready to give the president a $230 million payday, which is unconstitutional. The Constitution is clear. The president shall not receive any payment except his salary while in office. The fact of the matter is that you will be remembered as one of the worst attorney generals in history, an attorney general who has prioritized obstruction over justice, corruption over the law, fealty to the president over loyalty to the Constitution. And Mr. Chairman, I will yield.
Gentlelady yields. Gentleman from Missouri is recognized. Excuse me, gentleman from Kansas, the attorney general, former attorney general.
Now, Jasmine Crockett said, I'm not going to waste my time asking her questions because we already see how she plays this deflection game that she does. We already see how she does this flabbergasting, or however they freaking said it. I can't remember exactly how they said it. Remember, I'm just dipping my toes back into the politics world. But anyway, she decided to avoid all of that. But Pam Bondi, of course, was not going to sit back and just let Jasmine Crockett get one off. She tried to clap back at Jasmine, and I'm going to give y'all that hot henny, because what is the purpose of giving y'all all of this if I'm not going to give y'all all the spicy parts too?
Mr. Schmidt is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And General Bondi, thanks for being here. Did you have anything you wanted to say before we talk?
I do. Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, my friend, for many years. I find it interesting that she didn't even want to try, Congresswoman Crockett, to ask any questions, because she certainly did not condemn her leader, Hakeem Jeffries, for taking money from Jeffrey Epstein after Epstein was convicted. And I will be brief to give you your time, Congressman. This is what she didn't want to talk about. Texas, from Cuba, convicted, homicide, arson, weapon offense.
Convicted.
You know,
So what we talking about? Convict
Texas,
some of these
convicted,
perpetrators that
homicide.
rape these women that are
Chairman,
sitting
time
behind you,
time
that
belongs
you
to the
refuse
gentleman
to even
from
acknowledge
Kansas.
they are here.
Time belongs to the
Texas.
gentleman from Kansas.
Mr. Chairman, could I have a few seconds
You
back
bet,
to make
you
up
bet.
for the yelling? Thank
bet.
you.
Forget the yelling. Filibustering. Thank you. Filibustering. There it is. Filibustering. Jasmine Crockett said, girl, I'm not even going to pay you no mind. You talking about people that was convicted. Next. And she got up and she exited the room. Shout out to Jasmine Crockett. But now it was Ted Lieu that specifically asked. Now remember, Jasmine Crockett just said that it is in the files that there were young girls being discussed. There were young girls that are somewhere in the vicinity of Trump and Epstein. She just said that there are conversations in the files. Now, let's pay attention to what Ted Lieu had to say to Bondi.
Thank you, Attorney General Bondi, for being here today. I'm going to show you two photos.
Thank you.
I'm going to show you two photos of former Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew attended various parties with Jeffrey Epstein.
It's crazy how he can say former Prince Andrew, but yet we can't say former disgraced president or former disgraced financier yet. We can't say that. Shout out to Britain for handling what they needed to handle and for standing with victims. Not just is this a win, a small win for the Epstein victims, but for victims every damn where.
Under the law Congress passed, you were allowed to redact photos to protect the victims of Epstein's sex trafficking operation. You redacted the photos of this victim's face because you were following the congressional law. Is that correct?
I'm sorry that we redacted the victim's
Because you were
face?
following the congressional law, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You have now established that please put the photos back up, that we are looking at a sex trafficking victim.
Now, my thing with her and this little sassy ass attitude that she has is because Pam Bondi, let's go back to Thomas Macy for a second. She's acting as if this is just some random, God, the word went right out my mouth. She's acting as if this is just some random BS question that's being asked of her, like it's offensive. But let's get back over here, shall we? Let's go back to what Thomas Macy had to say.
And it's in there. And what happens when you go to the portal at the DOJ to look at what's behind this redaction? Another redaction. So we can't even see them. And then there's some of these files you've pulled down from the website that we will never see because we can't search the redactions. So I have several questions for you. Who's responsible? Are you able to track who in your organization made this massive failure and released the victims' names? Are you able to track who it was that obscured Les Wexner's name as a co-conspirator in an FBI document? Do you have that kind of accountability?
I believe Wexner's name was listed more than 4,000 times.
Yeah, I already told you that. This is where he's listed as a co-conspirator.
Can I finish my answer?
This is why what she was just asked by Representative Lieu is so important, because Macy is asking her specifically about the redactions, and the answer that we are looking for is, are you able to track down who redacted these files? And she is not giving an answer, per usual.
Come on, let me finish my answer. We corrected that within 40 minutes. He was already, you're acting like everybody's trying to cover up Wexner's name.
40 minutes, she says. We redacted it. We pulled it down and we fixed that in 40 minutes. But watch this.
Reclaiming my time.
I'm going to answer this question.
Reclaiming my time.
Mr.
Chairman.
This is how this works.
Can I have my time back?
Mr.
Chairman.
The gentlelady can give her answer. The time belongs to the gentleman from
All right,
Kentucky.
I'm reclaiming my time.
Can I give my answer?
So
Yes.
I'm going to put the language of the bill up on the screen.
Chairman,
Because I
may I
have
give my
another
answer
question.
on that?
If-
It's a political
the question.
joke, and I need to give my answer
Yeah,
on that.
we'll let the Attorney General respond, and then the gentleman can move to his
Chairman,
next
it's
question.
my time.
Within 40
Chairman.
minutes, you asked me a question.
You can give
Within
me-
40 minutes, Wexner's name was added back.
Within 40 minutes
You
of me catching you red-handed.
Red-handed, there was one redaction out
Where
of
he's
over
listed as a
4,700,
co-conspirator. Okay.
and we invited.
Boom. And there it is. They brought it to her attention that he was listed as a co-conspirator, and there was a redaction that was had that should not have been had, because they're not supposed to be protecting the co-conspirators. They are supposed to be protecting the victims. They are not supposed to be protecting the commander and Cheeto felon in charge. They're supposed to be protecting the victims. They are not supposed to be covering things up. They are supposed to be moving in transparency. Yeah. But let's get back over here and let's finish up.
Under the Federal Victims Trafficking Protection Act, not only is Jeffrey Epstein guilty, but anyone who patronizes Epstein's sex operation is also guilty of a crime. That's why I find it absolutely despicable that you sought to protect Epstein's clients, like former Prince Andrew.
Henny Glasses in the chat if you agree with what he just said.
Last July, you closed the case on Epstein's abusers. The July 2025 memo from your Department of Justice stated, quote, "We did not uncover evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties." These two photos, please put the photos back up.
Absolutely.
These two photos staring you in the face are evidence of a crime and more than enough evidence to predicate an investigation against former Prince Andrew. So I ask you, Attorney General Pam Bondi, why did you shut down this investigation last July, and why have you not prosecuted former Prince Andrew?
I don't believe you asked Merrick Garland these questions when he was Attorney General and set before.
I agree with you.
Merrick Garland was her go-to for everyone, because you guys haven't seen the whole, I'm assuming there's a lot of people that are either watching now or who are going to watch on the replay that did not know that she kept bringing up previous attorney generals, previous administrations. And we're not talking about the previous administrations. We're not talking about the previous attorney general. We are talking about this attorney general, and we are talking about this administration that ran a campaign saying that they were going to be totally transparent and that they were going to release the Epstein files. They were going to investigate. There were going to be arrests made. They were going to stand for the victims, and they are not. So that is why she is supposed to be answering these questions. And if you're wondering why I am talking the way that I'm talking, is because this is about victims. This is not about a political grandstand. If you did something that was against the law, then you need to be held accountable. And I'm going to say this because we have a troll in here, and you can allow them to troll all you want to. You clearly have a warped mind, but you're welcome to stay at the bar. You're welcome to stay at the bar, but you are being watched.
I'm reclaiming my time. I agree with you. I agree with you. During the Biden administration, I called for people looking at Epstein files. Merrick Garland dropped the ball, as did Attorney General Bill Barr, as did Alex Acosta, a whole string of failures. But you are in charge. You have the power to change things, to hold these men accountable, and you're doing the opposite. You're protecting them. So I want to move on to another man.
Can I answer
Donald
that,
Trump.
though?
I want to move on to another
Can I answer
question.
your question about protecting?
You answered the question.
You're saying no. I love this.
I want to discuss another man, Donald Trump, who is all over the Epstein files, like former Prince. Here's the video. Like former Prince Andrew, Donald Trump attended various parties with Jeffrey Epstein. I want to know, were there any underage girls at that party or at any party that Trump attended with Jeffrey Epstein?
This is so ridiculous, and that they are trying to deflect from all the great things Donald Trump has done. There is no evidence that Donald Trump has committed a crime. Everyone knows that. This has been the most transparent presidency. He's the one that asked.
And I believe that facts matter. So let's talk about the facts. Fact number one, Donald Trump is one of the most named people in the Epstein files. At least 5,000 files contains more than 38,000 references to Trump, his wife, or Mar-a-Lago. Fact number two, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell made young girls available to Trump on multiple occasions. For example, according to this file, Ghislaine Maxwell presented a young girl to President Trump who spent more than 20 minutes apparently flirting with her.
It's in the files. It's in the files, yet she can't answer it.
Here's another example. This shows notes from FBI.
California. He does not want to talk about
I did not ask a
crime
question.
in his
She
state.
said there's no evidence of crime. I'm showing you here another document.
Donald Trump has done. There is no evidence that Donald Trump has committed a crime. Everyone knows that. This has been the most transparent presidency. He's the one that asked that those files.
I'm reclaiming my time.
be
I got your
released.
answer. You said there's no
President
evidence.
Trump asked
Mr. Chairman, please
the
stop the
Congress
clock.
to
Please
sign
stop the clock.
the legislation.
Time.
This is
Time.
this
I'd like
is
to reclaim
ridiculous.
my time.
Time belongs to the gentleman from California.
Okay. I'm going to put up another document from a witness who called the FBI's National Threat Operations Center because I believe you just lied under oath. There is ample evidence in the Epstein file.
Don't you ever accuse me of a crime.
I believe you just lied under oath, and this is all on videotape. You said there's no evidence of crime. I'm showing you, here is a witness statement who called into the FBI's Threat Operations Center. He drove Donald Trump around in a limo. He overheard what Donald Trump said to Jeffrey on his cell phone. He was so angry, he was going to stop a limo and hurt Donald Trump. And he met a girl who said she was raped by Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. She later had her head blown off, and officers at the scene said that could not have been suicide. No one at the Department of Justice interviewed this witness. You need to interview this witness immediately. Epstein should rot in hell. So should the men who patronized his operation. And as we sit here today, there are over 1,000 sex trafficking victims, and you have not held a single man accountable. Shame on you. If you had any decency, you would resign right after this hearing concludes.
The gentleman has expired.
Now, let me say this. This Chairman Jordan, was a piece of work. You just heard him grunt after all that he just heard. And she absolutely did commit perjury. She perjured herself. She lied under oath. How many of you, Henny Glass is in the chat. Sherman said, woo, they coming for you, woman. Oh, I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. Because they plucked a nerve with me. But let me say this, Henny Glasses in the chat, if y'all remember the video that seems to have been scrubbed off the internet that you can't Google and find anymore of Epstein and Trump in a room with a bunch of people, and it's a bunch of little girls. Do y'all remember seeing that video? Because I just tried to Google search it, and maybe I'm putting the wrong wording in, and that's why it's not coming up. But I can't seem to find that video anywhere. So if you guys come across that video, please send it to me, because we need to protect and preserve that video, because that is video evidence. He asked specifically, he did not ask, did he do anything with them? He did not ask, did Donald Trump make any of them feel uncomfortable? No, that's not what he asked. What he asked was he ever at a party with Epstein with young girls? Attorney General Pam Bondi, you absolutely did lie under oath. But not only did she lie under oath, she insulted the very victims that everyone is asking for answers to bring clarity to. She insulted the victims that are in these files, the victims that have come forward. And excuse me, let me stop saying victims, survivors. The survivors that were in those, that are in those files, the survivors that lived and suffered at the hands of all of these co-conspirators that they are covering up and hiding. They suffered at the hands of Prince Andrew and any and everybody else that was involved in this conspiracy and this global child sex trafficking ring. She insulted them by not even acknowledging them, nor would she even offer them an apology while they were sitting right there, just seats behind her. For that, we're going to turn to Jaya Payel, because she was the first one in this congressional hearing that made her show who she really is and what she really thinks and how she really feels about victims. So let's hear what Jaya Payel had to say.
To the survivors in the room, if you are willing, please stand. And if you are willing, please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Please know for the record that every single survivor has raised their hand. Attorney General Bondi.
Hold on, no. Let me find a better video for y'all, because y'all need to see. Y'all need to see this in its entirety. You don't need to see it from this angle. Let me get y'all a better angle. Jaya Payel, Pam Bondi. Let me get you a better angle, because that's not a good angle. All right. We need the angle where it shows the actual victim standing behind her and raising their hands. I don't want it cut out. I want it shown, because it was very telling and it was very cold shoulder. Here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hold on. Okay.
Financial ties to President Trump's example of an email from Epstein. Here behind me is one example of an email from Epstein to a man whose name was redacted. The email reads, quote, "Where are you? Are you okay? I loved the torture video." Only after members of Congress demanded that we see the unredacted files did the world learn the name of this individual, Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayman.
Now, here's the thing. Why are you protecting that person's name? That's not who should be protected. He should be on blast, and he should be investigated, and he should be charged, and it should there's a lot of should be's that are not happening.
the chairman and CEO of a company that had financial ties to President Trump's business and personal ties to Trump's advisor, Steve Bannon. Second, the survivors were not similarly protected, also in violation of the law. Here is another email titled Epstein Victim List. We have blurred the names of the survivors for their protection, but your Department of Justice initially released this list of 32 survivors' names with only one name redacted, along with numerous files that disclose not only the names, the emails, and the addresses of survivors, but also nude photographs and even the identities of Jane Does who had been protected for decades until your department released their names.
And yes, in case you did not know, there was a file that was released that did contain nude photos of victims in that file. Granted, it was yanked right back down. I don't know if anybody has that file. I don't even care to see that file. And if you do have that file, maybe you need to be investigated too, because nobody wants to see that. Okay. Now, this is how much they have violated these survivors. I keep saying victims because they keep saying victims. These survivors of Epstein and this sex trafficking ring. This is how much disrespect that they have been shown. This is how much vulnerability. I said it right. I had to make sure I said it right. They have been exposed to by a department that's supposed to be protecting them.
Survivors are now telling us that their families are finding out for the first time that they were trafficked by Epstein.
Families are finding out for the first time that they were trafficked. They were testifying under Jane Doe's because they did not want to be exposed. They wanted to just testify to what happened to them and that be that. But no, you have exposed them to a whole different level of trauma.
Their words, quote, "This release does not provide closure. It feels like a deliberate attempt to intimidate survivors, punish those who came forward, and reinforce the same culture of secrecy that allowed Epstein's crimes to continue for decades."
And she did not lie. Because that's what this is about. If you come forward, we're not going to protect you. We are going to expose you. That's what it gave. And while she's talking, Pam Bondi is flipping through her burn book so she could try to have something to launch back at Jaya Payel.
To the survivors in the room, if you are willing, please stand. And if you are willing, please raise your hands if you have still not been able to meet with this Department of Justice. Please know for the record that every single survivor has raised their hand. Attorney General Bondi, you apologized to the survivors in your opening statement for what they went through at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein. Will you turn to them now and apologize for what your Department of Justice has put them through with the absolutely unacceptable release of the Epstein files and their information?
Congresswoman, you sat before Merrick Garland sat in this chair twice.
Attorney General Bondi,
No, can I finish my answer?
No, I'm going to reclaim my time because I asked you a
Attorney General,
specific question
Attorney General
that
can
I would
respond to your
like
question.
you to answer, which is, will you turn to the survivors? This is not about anybody that came before you. It is about you taking responsibility for your Department of Justice and the harm that it has done to the survivors who are standing right behind you and are waiting for you to turn to them and apologize for what your Department of Justice has done.
Members get to ask the questions, the witness gets to answer in the way they want to answer. The Attorney General can
That's
respond.
not accurate, Mr. Chairman.
Because she
It
doesn't
is
like the
my
answer.
time.
So,
Mr. Chairman.
She couldn't even find the decency to turn around and apologize for any ill treatment that they have received, apologize for releasing their names, their emails, their addresses, their phone numbers. She couldn't even turn around and do that. She was so caught up in trying to burn Jaya Payel. And this chairman was allowing it because she's supposed to answer the question. It is not a matter of she gets to answer the question the way that she wants to answer the question, because if the question is a yes or no, she's supposed to answer yes or no. He was very much coddling her. Very much Cheeto felon glizzy goblin.
Why?
I have asked.
Didn't she ask Merrick Garland this?
I'm
twice
reclaiming
when
my
he sat in my
time, and when
chair?
I
will
reclaim my
continue to
time,
answer.
it
Mr.
is
Chairman,
my-
the gentlelady's
I'm
reclaimed her
not going
time.
to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
The time belongs to the
You don't have to get in the gutter because you already sit there. You reside there. You dwell there. You are a garbage pail kid.
time belongs to the gentlelady. The gentlelady has 17 seconds.
Thank you. You're not going to answer this question, so let me just say
Chairman, I'll
this.
direct it to
What a
you.
massive
No, I'm
cover-up.
answering a
Mr.
question.
Chairman, will you
Chairman.
restore her time? The witness
I'm
is
not gonna get in
interrupted.
the gutter with this woman.
Stop the
She's
time
doing
and
theatrics.
let me have my time.
The gentlelady from Washington controls the time. The gentlelady has 17 seconds. You can proceed with your final
Thank you.
17 seconds.
What a massive cover-up this has been and continues to be. Donald Trump made the release of the Epstein files the center of his political campaign because he thought it would benefit him. Then you got into office, Attorney General, claimed to have a client list, only
Regular
to
order.
then say that there was no list. Your deputy, Todd
The time of
Blanche,
the-
met alone
time of the
with
gentlelady
Ghislaine
has-
Maxwell
the time of the
and
gentlelady has
transferred her
expired.
to a minimum security prison. And now you continue
the
the
time of the
cover-up. And
gentlelady
I
has
wish
expired.
that you would turn around to the survivors who are standing right behind you and on a human level,
Chairman,
Chair now
apologize
recognizes the
for
chair.
what you have done.
Time of the
I
gentlelady
yield
expired.
back.
The gentlelady, you have no time to yield back.
Theatrics.
We appreciate that. We appreciate the thought.
You heard Pam Bondi. Theatrics. That's what she called it. And never once did she turn around and acknowledge the survivors. Yeah, she apologized for what they had gone through and suffered through at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein, but she never once apologized for what they have gone through and suffered through at the hands of this DOJ and at the hands of this administration. Yeah, she never turned around for that. But that's okay, because yesterday, after the hearing, the Epstein survivors sat with NBC News Now, and they spoke about what it felt like sitting in that hearing and listening to Pam Bondi and watching how Pam Bondi was ducking and dodging and shooking and jiving. So let's hear what the survivors have to say, and then I will give my 1-2 as usual for you guys after. Thank you, by the way, for everybody who is tapping in, who is tuning in to the content. I appreciate you staying through the noise in the background while they do the construction outside. And let me be honest, whether I'm inside or I'm in Henny Studios, it doesn't matter. You can still hear them. But I thank y'all for being here. I thank you for supporting the new content that is being introduced to the channel. I will be speaking more on this. I will also be bringing some Black history to the channel. And be sure that you are following me on Twitch, because I do longer streams and break down more information over on the Twitch. And once we get more people on Twitch, I will do more congressional hearings for you guys. But enough about me. Let's get into what these survivors had to say.
Your hands if you were satisfied with what you heard from the Attorney General today. Nobody. Show of hands if you are frustrated with what you heard.
Very much so.
Very much so. Teresa, tell me more about that.
Well, going into this morning, and much of this process, I have this perspective that you need to give people the opportunity to do what they say they're going to do, to fulfill their word, put their money where their mouth is, so to speak. And we have yet again seen that go the complete opposite direction of there's no integrity. There was no integrity in that room today. It seemed like, as far when it came to Epstein and Maxwell, you know, there was a lot of expression of other good outcomes on things. And I can agree with a lot of what was said. And there was nothing that gave us any bit of hope of any kind of integrity and doing the right thing when it comes to Epstein Maxwell accountability, further investigation, which she claimed was happening. And we're going to be waiting to see the outcome of that and see if that's an accurate, legitimate statement.
And that's the other thing. While she was busy talking about sidestepping, the questions when it came down to Epstein and the files and all of that, she was busy singing praises to how they have the lowest crime drop in history. Henny Glasses in the chat if y'all want me to break it down for y'all. Because once again, Donald Trump is benefiting off of the backs of other people's hard work and determination that has gone in to making sure that something is in place. Okay. U.S. violent and property crime rates have been declining overall since the early 1990s, right? Long before the president. Now, national data shows that the violent crime rate was slightly lower between 2017 and 2019 compared to 2016. And the homicide and violent rate decreased modestly in some years early in Trump's first term. However, crime spiked in 2020 across much of the country during the COVID pandemic. Homicides rose sharply that year as well. Now, FBI data shows that violent crime continued to fall in 2023 and 2024. That's during the Biden administration, not during his administration, when it started to fall. And in early 2025, data from major cities showed big drops in homicide and other violent crimes compared to previous years. Some categories were down 20 to 30%, and that's where she's getting that 20 to 30%. Okay. And reports from independent analysts suggest that 2025 murder rate may be at a near historical low, and many cities are seeing continued overall crime decline. So as you hear, crime had already started declining way before Trump took presidency, and multiple factors influence that crime, like local policing, economic conditions, pandemic effects, demographics, technology, social programs, etc., etc., etc. So yes, crime in the U.S., especially violent crime like homicide, has declined, but it's been declining in recent years. It has nothing to do with anything that he did specifically. It's something that was already on the decline. Okay? So while they can sit up here and they can say that they've shut down sex trafficking rings and brought these children home, that's fine and that's dandy and that's all cool and well. But while you're bragging about what you're doing for others, you are putting a slap in the face to the survivors that are sitting in the room right along with you, that you are not protecting, that you are not doing what you said you would do, and that you have exposed, more so than you have exposed, the ring of co-conspirators in these files.
Danny, I see you nodding and shaking your head.
I think there was such a lack of empathy today. There was such a lack of, honestly, humanity today. Something that, I think all of us felt a little devastated about was that she had 3 opportunities to address survivors. We stood up and all she had to do was turn around, and she could not even turn around and face us. For so many years, and I can't speak for everybody, but for me, I felt like such a ghost walking through Epstein's mansion. I felt like there were so many people who saw me. There were so many people who should have spoken up. And instead, I felt like I was less than nothing. And now to not have AG Bondi turn around and acknowledge us, it is the exact same type of victimization.
Do you hear that? It was a re-traumatization to this woman. Because while she was going through what she was going through at the hands of Epstein and his affiliates, people saw her but didn't see her. She didn't feel seen. Imagine going to the Attorney General for help and you're still not seen. Even sitting a couple seats behind her, she won't even turn around and acknowledge you.
It's horrible.
Charlene, what did you think of that moment when you all were standing there and she was asked by one of the members of Congress to turn around and address you?
I felt really degraded. I felt that she's not taking at all any accountability. She's not following any kind of transparency. And honestly, the thought that I have is birds of a feather flock together. So I feel like the way that she handled today is often the way that our president or other people have treated us that are really high up. And I felt like she was treating us just like everybody else has in the justice system and beyond.
I was looking at you all. The cameras there had shown a view of you in that moment on your feet in front of this hearing room, in front of all of these cameras. And I wonder, Jess, Liz, all of you, if you can take me, what was going inside in your mind? What was happening in your mind? What were you thinking as that moment was happening?
So one of the things I was thinking in that moment is that it is such a simple act to turn around and say, I apologize for the terrible job our DOJ did in releasing, that is something that is completely inappropriate. To take responsibility for that, for the damage they did to us, not to state it as, yes, we understand damage was done. No, to us. It was such a simple thing. And it's something we teach children, to take accountability, to recognize when you've made a mistake and you just apologize for it. So there wasn't even an adult in the room that could apologize for the damage done to children and girls.
And that is very important right there. And I want you guys to remember, as we're watching this, these are the survivors that were sitting in the hearing as she was performing and filibustering. Thank you, Cool Ass Jazz. All over the Capitol's hearing room.
In her opening remarks, the Attorney General said, I am deeply sorry for what any victim has been through, especially as a result of that monster.
That monster, but not. So there's the crimes of Jeffrey Epstein, and then there's the crimes of the cover-up. And she's part of that continuing cover-up. So
that part. I love the way that she separated the two, because that's exactly what we're talking about here.
She didn't apologize for that.
But when she said that monster, she said it as if he acted alone.
Yes.
Right.
And Epstein was absolutely a monster, but he didn't act alone. And I think that we now have more evidence of that from what we've seen in the files. And what is really difficult for me to wrap my head around is I met Epstein and Maxwell when I was 21. I'm almost 53 now. And I was just raised differently. I was raised to respect our government. I was raised to be able to speak to people of different political parties. And maybe I don't always agree with them, but their insights help me shape my opinions. And I just don't see that happening. And that's what I grew up in. That's the America that I grew up in. And for us to now feel like the Department of Justice, which is in charge of seeking justice for all Americans who are victims of crime, they've just completely let us down. And so to hear her say, if you have been a victim of crime, we want you to call the FBI. I called the FBI. And in the release of files, my intake report was released twice, once with part of my address, and once where my name was unredacted several times, including in a sentence that said, Stein was a victim of Epstein and Maxwell in the mid-90s. So I find it really difficult to have any faith when we are constantly, being manipulated and downplayed by our government, we've heard several times our government say, we're moving on from this. And that just enrages me.
Yeah.
This has been 3 decades of my life. We'd all love to move on with this. But how do you move on if you don't have justice?
Okay, my bad. Thank you. All right. So what I was saying was we're going to end that video right there because I think that that's a good sentence to stop at. And I do encourage you all to go and watch the interview for yourself. They had a lot to say. They talked about Virginia. If you're wondering who the man is that's there, he's there for Virginia, representing Virginia. And Virginia, I'm still muted. Can you guys hear now? Let me know if you guys can hear me now. Okay, I'm good. All right. So Virginia is one of the survivors who was in Australia, and Virginia ended up unalived. Okay. And that came after several attempts were already made on her life. So these Epstein files and the story of Epstein, it gets very dark and it gets very grim and it gets very bleak. And I want to continue to cover this and follow this because I covered and followed Diddy. Okay. And I'm going to cover and follow Epstein. You know why? Because every time a survivor comes out to speak, they get ignored. They get played with. They get toyed with. They get accusations made on them. They're called liars. They're not believed. And what we're witnessing right now is the most egregious act against survivors of sex crimes. These women, they were violated. And let me explain something to you for those who are going to say, oh, well, these are white people. That's white problems. These are white women. We have our own issues in the Black community. We do. You're right. They are. But when it comes down to being a victim of a sex crime, a survivor of a sex crime, there is no color. The trauma, while it may be different, it's still innately the same. It's still injustice. No matter who is receiving the injustice, it's injustice. And turning a blind eye because of ethnicity is ignorant. This is the most horrible miscarriage of justice. And I am really hoping that in November, when the midterm elections come around, that the people speak loud and clear. And I'm not political, and y'all know that. But I hope that people speak loud and clear and take a stance that we're not going to tolerate a Department of Justice or an administrative cabinet that is going to sweep survivors underneath the carpet, disrespect them to their faces during congressional hearings, and not only that, expose them and exploit them and threaten them, because that's basically what that was by releasing their names, their emails, their addresses, their photographs. You're trying to press upon them a threat, subtle. You put them in danger. These are not people that are average, everyday Joes. These are people that have wealth, that have power, that have influence, that run in a circle together. And when they're being protected by the Department of Justice, by the Cheeto felon, that gives them even more power. Let's not let another victim disappear. I'm going to be covering this and I'm going to be following it. So when you see this background, know that we are on our political bullshit. But I want to say thank you to everybody who tapped in and tuned into this, because this is something that needs to be talked about. This is something that we need to pay attention to. And at this particular point in time, it ain't about numbers. It's about getting the voice out there. It's about getting the information out there to the people, because we, the people, we have more power in this country than what we realize. So I'm going to say thank you to everyone who has tapped in and tuned in. Admins, can you please drop the Twitch link, because we're going to continue on. I'm going to be switching over to my Twitch live. And if you will be joining us on the Twitch live, I am going to take you down a history of ICE. What was it originally built for? What is their actual job and what are they supposed to be doing? How did they come into play and how long have they been operating? I'm going to give that to you. On the unalivings of Nicole Good and Alex Preddy, the only ones that we know of the only ones that have happened, they're not. There's more. And it's very egregious. And from there, we're going to listen to the DHS, which is the Department of Homeland Security, as they sat through their own congressional hearing and they spoke about training and all types of information that we need to hear about. So if you would, please join us on Twitch so that we can continue this conversation and get a little bit more in depth. If this is where you will be dropping off at, then thank you for tapping in and tuning in. I'll see you in the next pour up. You never know what it might be. It could be a court doc, it could be some hot goss, or it could just be a real life topic. But I love all of y'all. Thank y'all for all of the support. Be sure to share this out with a friend, and I'll see y'all in the next one. If you're not joining us on Twitch, peace, everybody. We out.